Okay. All right, we're going to get started. Y'all ready? Okay. I'd like to call to order the September 12th, 2019 meeting of the Sacramento Transportation Authority and Abandoned Vehicle Service Authority to order. Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
Good afternoon. Mr. Carr? Frost? Gatewood? Here. Guerra? Hansen? Harris? Here. Hume?
Hansen was here.
Hume?
Here.
Kennedy?
Here.
Lozano?
Here.
Miller?
Here.
Natoli? Chernier? Cerna? Swen?
Here.
And Ms. Peters.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Would everyone stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Read the statement, please.
This meeting of the Sacramento Transportation Authority is cablecast live on Metro Cable 14, the local government affairs channel on the Comcast Consolidated Communications and AT&T UVerse cable systems. The meeting is closed captioned and webcast at sacramentocable.tv. Today's meeting will replay Sunday, September 15th at 2 p.m. and Monday, September 16th at 2 p.m. on Channel 14. Members of the audience wishing to address the board should fill out a speaker identification form located at the back of the board chambers and give it to the clerk. Please speak into the microphone when addressing the board and state your name for the record. If you have any electronic devices, please silence them at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Comment before we get started. We have two directors, at least one so far, calling in, and so their comments will be announced into our microphone system and come out through the speakers. And we haven't ever tried this before at the Board of Supervisors, so bear with me if I fumble through this. My plan is that I'll ask for comments from those directors after board members who are present have finished speaking. So let's call the first item.
Item number 1, comments from the public regarding matters not on the agenda.
I have an off-agenda speaker, Jeffrey Tartagia, please.
Good afternoon, STA board members. What I am going to suggest today is that you should be examining a Plan B and a Plan C in regards to what, shall we say, you propose for a Sacramento transportation tax. I really think you should spend some effort and time at a parcel tax to see. It will be a lot more work, but you've had since 2016 to figure out and build the groundwork for going for another transportation measure. And if you're going again for another Measure A, which seems to be the likelihood again, that you, once again, I will say, need to contact every single group that drives cars so that they know why public transportation tax is needed to facilitate for the Sacramento region the infrastructure that is necessary and needed. That's my comment to you. I understand Article 34 is in the process with the legislator. Only 2 more days for that to possibly work out. If you don't know what Proposition 34 in Article 34 is in the California State Constitution, please, I invite you to take a look and study it.
Thank you. Executive Director's report.
Good afternoon. Last year at this time, I reported that the California Department of Fee and Tax Administration was not able to process all of the fiscal year 2017-18 tax returns and remit the sales taxes to our agency in time. And what that did was it caused our the last 2 fiscal years of sales tax remittances to be intermixed. But now that the last fiscal year has ended and we've had some time to close the books, we are able to now go back and analyze how we did. So we had projected combined sales taxes of $252 million over the last 2 years. we actually came in at 250 million.94. And so the reason I point this out is because providing accurate forecasts for the board and that the members of the public and our Measure A partners can rely on, it's a big focus for us, and it's something that we take a great deal of pride in, to be less than half of 1% off for these projections. The STA is currently undergoing 2 audits, our first ever performance audit, and we are also undergoing our annual financial audit currently in the office. The Independent Taxpayer Oversight Committee, the ITOC or ITOC, is overseeing both of these audits, and they will be presenting their reports to your board in the coming months. Regarding Freeway Service Patrol, I had reported in the written Executive Director's report that we have already received our current fiscal year fund transfer agreement, which is 5 to 7 months earlier than we typically get it. But I'm also pleased to report that we've also received the fund transfer agreement for the SB1, for the new SB1 funding for FSP. That allows us to move forward confidently, letting out a request for bids for some of our beats, and also exploring adding some new service. So that's very good news. Regarding the SB1 Local Partnership Program, there is a Senate bill, California bill, Senate Bill 277, which would change how $200 million in statewide transportation funding is allocated. That bill was amended several times, but it was voted off the Assembly floor on Monday, and I believe that it passed the Senate just yesterday. It is now sitting on the governor's desk. If passed, if the governor signs that, what that will mean is that 85% of the $200 million will be allocated by formula, which pretty much guarantees us here at the Sacramento Transportation Authority and in Sacramento County that we would be pretty much guaranteed our portion, our share of $170 million every year. So that is something that we're keeping our fingers crossed on, and that I'll report back to you. By the way, regarding that, regardless of what happens, whether the governor signs that bill or not, I have talked with CTC staff, and they have said that the schedule that was originally published for the next cycle of the local partnership program is likely to be pushed back, which is huge news for us because we have so much going on. So it is very welcomed if that happens. And finally, it has been my pleasure to serve as your executive director for the last 2 1/3 years. The last item on your agenda today is a closed session to appoint the next executive director upon my retirement at the end of this year. And that will be outside these back doors and to your left. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the executive director? Members attending on the phone, do you have any questions for the executive director? Okay, Mr. Harris?
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to say, Norm, that you've been exemplary leading this organization, and I personally am going to miss working with you very much. I think you've done an awful lot to bring us back into really good shape, certainly in the public's eyes, and make this organization transparent and functional and achieving the goals that we're meant to achieve. And I can't thank you enough for your service. It's maybe a little premature, but since you made
Be
the
here another couple
announcement-
months.
Several months.
It's a little premature, but you know, for the next few months, I hope you feel a little bit of a glow because we do appreciate you.
Thank you for the kind words.
Thank you. Anyone else? So, next item.
Consent items. For your consent items, you have items 3 through 9.
Okay, I have a couple people here who would like to speak to item 7, so I'll pull that off of the consent and ask for a motion on the balance of consent.
I'll move consent.
Are we voting on the screen, Alma? You can? Okay, yes, ma'am.
I believe
Please
we have
vote
to do
then.
roll call if we have people on the phone.
We'll ask them when we're finished.
Okay.
Please vote.
We're still trying to fix ours down here.
Can Carrie give you her vote verbally? Because we're
That's fine.
not on.
Oh. I'm sorry. I can redo it, but I can have you revote if you'd like, Ms. Chair.
Okay, let's revote.
Okay.
That's perfect.
Clear it and start over.
You're on now.
Please vote.
Please vote.
Sorry about that. That's okay. You didn't know I was going
Unanimous vote.
Okay, would you read item 7 into the record?
Still have to call off.
Sorry, thank you. Is Director Chenier there? Okay, just want to be then. Thank you. Please read item 7.
Item number 7, Measure A, fiscal year 2018-19, budget to actual report.
I have 2 speakers, Helen O'Connell, and after that, Jeffrey Tartagia for item 7.
Good afternoon, Board. My name is Helen O'Connell, and I appreciate the fact that you're going to make the budget to the actual report public so that people will know what's actually happening instead of guessing all the time. It's important that the public knows what's going on with the budget so that they can make better decisions for the transportation in this area. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. Jeffrey?
And board members, I am assuming on the website that I will be able to see it. I'm assuming what I'm going to do is ask, since it is probably such a fine, small report of the actual in the way of numbers, and if it is a, what do you want to call it, a Excel type of report for the actual thing there is, I will have a difficult time visually reading that, so I will put a request to see that. I was expecting that that report, even though it's consent, might have been here available for the public to see, but I'm assuming and will ask is whether this is only going to be an annual thing that you're going to, or is where the actual through there. The executive report explained a bit more of it, but I do appreciate when handouts are available on items like that with these particular. I've talked with your individual about some items. I will talk with him about getting some of these items available to me, and I will see if I come over to 12th Street and pick them up. Okay, thank you.
Can I respond?
Yes, Mr. Hahn?
So the budget to actual reports is something that we started implementing about 2 years ago. We do it on a quarterly basis. It's always part of your board packets, and then once a year when the fiscal year wraps up, we also do a annual report. All of these items are posted under the agenda for which they're related to. So they are available online. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, consent is passed. Next item.
Item number 10 is the Measure A, Transportation Expenditure Plan Development.
Oh, yes, number 7. I guess we have to vote on that.
There's no, it's
Receive
a
and
receive
file.
and file.
Oh, it was receive and file. Okay, thank you. So, Mr. Townsend,
Hello, everybody. Thank
team
you.
will be making the presentation.
Yes, thank you. I got to figure out how to do this thing here. Okay, let's see. STA has asked us to put together a team of consultants to go out and build a potential expenditure plan for your consideration for potentially going on the November 2020 ballot. And that's what we're doing right now. So our job has been, and we've been working on it, and I'm going to introduce Noah here in a second to come up and give you the detail on the status of where we are now, and then I'll come back up and talk about where we're going from here. So without further ado, Noah Painter.
Thank you, David. Noah Painter, Chair, members of the board, thank you for the opportunity to go over a presentation about the outreach program that we've been working on for the past year. what I want to do is go through our outreach process and design, cover the listening tour, the key findings and outcomes that we had from that, as well as community comments, and then go over the unmet needs kind of consolidated presentation and discuss next steps. So our outreach process and design was designed for Sacramento County, modeled after Los Angeles's outreach process for Measure M. The process for outreach at Measure M in LA County was a bottoms-up approach, and that's what we mimicked here. There's a key difference, though, with what Los Angeles County did because of the size of LA County and the multiple council of governments that they have. We are significantly different in just geographic structure and population. So what we did is modeled their best practices, going out, talking to people where they are, and being able to have conversations in one-on-one meetings and small group meetings to be able to discuss with them what their transportation priorities were in terms of overall themes as well as project-specific goals. We identified organizations throughout the county, ensuring that we were able to include a diverse population. We talked to neighborhood associations, nonprofits, healthcare orgs, education organizations, unions, construction contract firms, people in the development community, environmental groups, business organizations, and folks that manage PBIDs as well as PBID members. We asked them a series of questions, and our methodology was essentially a questionnaire to where we could then capture qualitative data. And that's one thing I do want to highlight, that the listening tour in itself was not quantitative in nature, it was a qualitative process. We asked them several goals. What were your transportation funding priorities? What is the best way to gather public input? Why do you think Measure B failed? And what considerations should decision makers keep in mind when determining how funds are allocated? This is just a list of some of the questions that we had, but those are kind of the key priority questions that we received feedback. Our key findings after talking to over 107 organizations, which included a variety of organizations such as AARP, ECOS, the Black Parallel School Board, the Mac Road Partnership, La Familia, the Arden Arcade Rotary, the Sacramento Metropolitan Chamber of Commerce, the Avondale Glen Elder Neighborhood Association. Overwhelmingly, respondents, when asked to pick top 3 priorities, they chose fixing and repairing roads, including filling potholes, repaving streets, and adding bike lanes. They also chose relieving traffic on local roads and highways, and improving neighborhood livability. Additional items that came up as close top 3 priorities were improving bikeways, reducing emissions and improving air quality, relieving congestion and reducing traffic to improve commute times. One of the things that we did here was transparency is essential. Reducing emissions and air quality was one of the key issues that came up kind of throughout the board, broad discussions that we had. Another one that we did here a lot is making arterial roads more walkable and pedestrian friendly. Community comments, and these are non-attributable, but they're pulled comments from the conversations that we had through our questionnaires, was to spend dollars more wisely and make public transportation more enticing. We cannot force people to use public transportation, but build it correctly and make them want to give up their cars. Additionally, we heard we're losing livability in older established neighborhoods due to growth in other areas. Conversely, we also heard they want to alleviate traffic and get traffic off major freeways. Some folks said that they wanted to complete the connector. Other folks said that they want to hear overall have poor quality of roads and we need to fix them. And some folks said that they don't pay for transit, and they don't use transit and they don't want to pay for it. In total, the conversation with 107 different organizations was a very long process. This took over a year to conduct these conversations and meetings, to collect data, and be able to synthesize down those results into a meaningful document that allows for this report to be completed. We're currently finalizing a report, and we'll be publishing it soon through SACOG, as well as the Sacramento County and City of Sacramento websites and STA's website. Next, I want to shift towards the unmet transportation needs. And over the past year at this STA board, the board had heard from a variety of professional advisory group members that are recipients of STA funds. Those unmet transportation needs were presented in essentially project lists. Those project lists are totaled on this page, and just want to kind of give a overall view here. The city and counties of Sacramento, cities and the county of Sacramento, in total requested is $7.12 billion in overall unmet needs. Additionally, regional congestion relief projects such as the connector, such as the American River Parkway, and projects that are regional in nature, requested $1.63 billion in needs. Sacramento Regional Transit was $3.18 billion. Senior and disabled transit services was $250 million. And commuter rail was $266 million, totaling over $12.44 billion in unmet needs. To kind of frame that, the previous measure in 2016 generated about $3.6 billion. So there is a significant gap in what a measure could generate potentially to the overall unmet need. Our next steps are this month to launch a redesigned website and social media page for STA. We're currently wrapping the website up to update it. It hasn't been updated in over 15 years, it looks like. And the social media page has been active but not actively maintained in terms of proactive outreach and being able to connect with people throughout the county on a regular basis. Additionally, we want to coordinate with the PAG members and plan, design, and organize additional community meetings. The 107 organizations that we were able to talk to through this listening tour and additional outreach that we've done, we don't stop now. We want to continue to be able to have more proactive outreach that will be focused on open house style meetings, working with our PAG partners. We'd like to invite multiple members of this board to attend those meetings, so we will be following up with your staff to that. In October, we'll line up our first series of community open house meetings, asking and gaining input on the draft expenditure plan, priorities, and projects. Additionally, in November, we would have a follow-up community open house series, reviewing what the responses were from our research, as well as changes that will reflect any of the community input that we received in October, as well as feedback that we received from the board. And then moving forward, we'd like to have one last series, and it's not in the December timeline, but we would reserve the right to be able to hold additional community outreach meetings in December to get feedback. At that point, we would hopefully be finalizing the expenditure plan and being able to present that back before the board. What I'd like to do now is bring David back up so he can kind of go over the research, what the next steps are for opinion research, and so forth.
Thank you, Noah.
Thank you, Noah. Okay, so next steps. In September now, we are continuing to finalize the unmet needs and priority projects from all the jurisdictions. And we are taking that information, and we are now working with our pollsters to develop an in-depth survey that will survey these projects and other, issues that we want to, talk to the voters and see what they feel on this. It will probably be a very large sample, so that we'll be able to give you breakdowns into your own local communities, so that, because obviously the communities of Sacramento are very diverse and different. We're using the polling firm of FM3, which is John Fairbanks and Dave Metz and others. They are also the firm that did the Los Angeles measure as well. So we will be adopting a structure similar to the LA model. I've worked with them for years. They're very good. They've done a lot of work in Sacramento. So we're working on the survey instrument at this point. We will conduct the survey in September. In October, we will analyze the poll results and the crosstabs. We will continue to refine the expenditure plan and then provide the options to the PAGs, the members of the PAG, and to all of you. We recognize that we are not deciders, we are providers. So we will be providing this board with the unmet needs expenditure list, what the allocations were under Measure B, which, as you remember, we got within 1 point of passing, got 66% of the vote. And each of the jurisdictions have taken their priorities from the unmet needs and have shaped it and shaved it down to fit within the allocations of B, understanding that that doesn't mean that anything other than we're just trying to figure out how we can shave the $12 billion down to $3.5 billion. And then in addition to that, you'll have the poll results so that you can see for yourself those things that the public wants, those things that the public doesn't want. And as we know in the world of campaigns, the voters ultimately will decide whether or not this goes forward. So we hope to be able to provide all of that information to the board and to the public. This has been totally transparent. When the website is released or updated, all of this data in terms of all these unmet needs, this giant spreadsheet that we're working on, will also be available to the public so that everybody can see, what's being asked for by the various jurisdictions.
Before you go to the next
Yeah.
slide, we have a question.
Sure.
Mr. Hume?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, Kennedy. Me,
Okay. Patrick, number 2.
I got the wrong one. There we go. David, so just for clarification, there's some confusion in public and probably up here as well. There's multifaceted approach to this. There's what Mr. Painter's been talking about as far as the listening tour. There's also, isn't there a 501c4 that's been established as a educational tool?
Correct.
And then eventually there'll be another arm that'll be separate from us and have that if there is a campaign, we'll do a campaign.
That's correct.
Which one of those 3 buckets does the polling fit under?
The polling, this current polling is STA.
Okay.
This is part of the STA contract, and therefore it will be public to everybody.
That's what I wanted to know. Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And if we have to do subsequent polling, that would probably still be within STA, depending on budget.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
And I had a follow-up. At one point, I thought we were talking about $4.5 billion, and I think you just said 3.5. So
That's, Tim probably would know better than I, or Norm.
Our current measure is projected to receive, just in the sales tax portion, right around $4 billion.
okay, right in the middle. Thank you.
And we'll be doing some polling on whether or not we can figure out a way to increase that or whatever.
Right.
In November, will be a public discussion of the expenditure plan, by the board and the staff and however we want to do that to make sure we're getting everybody's thoughts and opinions and concerns dealt with. And then in December, the board will adopt the expenditure plan and then move forward with putting it on the ballot next year, if in fact the polling is strong enough that that the voters will support it, and of course that the local jurisdictions will support it as well. So that's our timeline. Hopefully, the last slide. Hopefully, you'll start seeing these signs going up where Measure A dollars are already at work, because there's a lot of stuff going on out there, and so we want people to know that their tax dollars are actually, doing a lot of good things. Any other questions or comments or?
I don't have anyone punched up to speak. Go ahead. Is that the end? Just a second, Mr. Hanson. Was that the end of your presentation?
Yes,
okay.
That's the end.
Then that's fine. Mr. Hanson has to go to the airport, so we'll get his question first. Go ahead. Okay, thank you for attending. Have a good flight. Yes, and the SAC Moves Coalition did send a letter, which we'll enter into the record, and if you didn't get a copy, Mr. Townsend.
Those are some of my favorite words.
So long. So we'll make that part of the public record. Any questions from board members?
Just,
Mr. Suen?
yeah. David, I just want to thank you and your team, Noah and Bob, for all your hard work thus far. 107 organizations, it's a lot of outreach, and just look forward to next steps. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's been pretty exhaustive to this point. I'm glad we hired a consultant to do it than having all of us split up 107 meetings. So that worked out very well, and I've seen the questions and some of the results, and I think it's been a good series of questions and a lot of answers that were well thought out. So I guess that's it for this point, making sure that nobody has a question at the last minute. Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Thanks
much.
to the team.
Thank you. Thank you for your help.
Item number 11 is comments of authority members.
Anyone have any further comments? Oh, I'm sorry. I had a bunch of questions here from the public. So I'm going to back up to the previous item and go to Jeffrey Tartagia. It's our first speaker. And I have 3 other people signed up to speak. If there are others out there that wish to, please get a speaker card to the clerk. Next would be, I think it's Susie Murray.
Board, remembering in 2008, when I first had an inquiry about the Sacramento Transportation Authority, appreciate the public exposure and the public involvement. I still think you need to work harder because, again, the fact that this is so rural in Sacramento County means you need to convince them of what public transportation needs are and why. And you have the review of whether those questions gave you the answers or not, and indeed whether geographically. And again, I thank Sue Frost for the time of the reminder of the, shall we say, voters registration, and showing what the last time and when it failed of where a lot of the responses came from. This is something that hopefully each one of you will see within your areas of jurisdiction of what your major constituent bodies, how they can assist you, because I do believe a public transportation tax is so needed. I am not yet convinced that, shall we say, as RT, yes, Chris, you're back there, but shall we say is that RT has gotten the message of what is the rider's perspective. I see right now, even on the ST board right now, so hopefully the website will be updated, that it says a phone number for the Econ or for e-transport for Elk Grove. Just wonder, what things are needing to be further updated to get that message out. So hopefully that in your public site, as you reach out there, is you have the better of what these initiatives are proposing and how easy it is to communicate and reach in. Don't want to have it where the mailbox is full.
Thank you. Susie Murray?
Good afternoon. I'm Susie Murray, and I'm a working mom living with my family in Arden Arcade. I'm urging the board to fully fund Sacramento Regional Transit to help ease a particular burden on working families. We face increasing burdens from the rising cost of healthcare, childcare, housing, college. I could go on. During the Great Recession, school districts countywide eliminated what was left of bus service, school bus service, and it's never come back. This shifted the burden of safely getting our kids to and from school onto families. This limits the kinds of jobs we can accept and the hours we can work to those that accommodate school schedules. It also increases the necessity of having a car, which is an additional financial burden. AAA estimates that the average cost of car ownership is $8,849 per year per car. RT has taken steps to improve the situation by including schools in its new bus route structure and lowering RT pass fares for K-12 students. But these routes only serve 12 high schools and 6 middle schools in the entire county. Expanding options to safely get our kids to and from school while reducing dependence on cars is something this board can do using local resources to support local solutions to local problems. I have a message from another mom who will shortly be driving to Carmichael to pick up our kids from school so that I could be here today. Get us some buses. Thank you.
Thank you. Emil Wadhwani and Jennifer Fenton. Sorry if I mispronounced the name.
No problem. There you are. Good afternoon, board chair and members of the board. I'm Mel Wadwani. That's how you say it. For some reason, my parents thought that was going to be an easy name, but it's not. I'm a resident of Midtown, and I am here with Jennifer Fenton, who is a resident of Carmichael and also the policy manager for Breathe California Sacramento region. We are here before you to represent the SAC Moves Coalition. You mentioned it earlier, our letter to you yesterday. We appreciate the mention and the fact that you're putting in the record. We also have additional copies if any of the board members would like to see a copy now. What is SAC Moves? SAC Moves is a broad-based coalition of environmental, business, transportation, neighborhood, and faith-based groups. Over the last several months, we have conferred with a broad-based set of interests and developed consensus around a balanced and inclusive vision for transportation investment. That framework is what we presented to you in the letter. Our ask of you is that you consider adopting the strategies in the framework as goals for any future expenditure plan. We won't go into detail on the framework now in 2 minutes, but we want to emphasize that the core of our vision and strategy is to strengthen public health and safety, livability, and economic health and growth for the region as a whole. So we ask for investment in existing communities so that we can prioritize funding that improves local roadway conditions and expands transportation options and builds on previous investments along commercial and rail corridors. We propose that you invest in public transit so that there is expanded frequencies and coverage. This would connect workers to jobs, provide options for the elderly, the disabled, and students, and reduce congestion for drivers. We believe in investment in active transportation to create safer, more connected bicycle and pedestrian networks across the county. We also propose that you invest in electric vehicle technology. Finally, we ask for investment in health and safety to eliminate roadway fatalities, reduce air quality emissions, and increase access to physical activity. We hope that you will spend some time reviewing the framework that we provided. Again, we have copies here if we can distribute them to you now, and we're happy to answer any questions. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you. Any questions? Glenda Marsh.
Glenda Marsh, now a co-founder of Sacramento Metro Advocates for Transit and Rail, and we provided a letter kind of where we're coming from back in late July, and our focus is very dovetails with what was just presented by the SAC Moves Coalition. We're conversing and feel very comfortable with that framework and want to add our voice that expansion and modernization of our transit system is going to be a key part of renewing our transportation systems in the county. And we want to thank you for the opportunity to be part of this process.
Thank you, Ms. Marsh. Now, any other questions? Okay.
Item number 11, comments of authority members.
Any further comments from authority members? Looks like not. Okay, we are going to recess for closed session. Top of the stairs to your left.
I was going to ask if you wanted me to filibuster.
Yeah, we. Call the STA meeting, Sacramento Transportation Authority for December 12th, 2019 back to order. I'd like to ask our county council, our agency council to make a comment.
Sure. In closed session, the board voted to appoint Will Kempton as the interim executive director for the year 2020.
Beginning January 1st. So, Will, welcome aboard. We're looking forward to your work, and I know Norm is too, and hopefully this gives you plenty of time to work with him and make sure that transition is seamless. So thank you. No further questions, and this meeting is adjourned.
Thanks, Susan.
You bet, thank you. Oh, okay.